next on our agenda, and thinking about that and looking at planning. So this is a great move into you, Leigh Ann. So we have Leigh Ann Hammerbacher, Director of Land Protection and Stewardship East with our Triangle Land Conservancy. Again, another one of our collaborative partners here in Wake County that we're working hard with to preserve and protect open space and conservation areas that we work with, and has been a generous sponsor. I want to do a shout out for you, Leigh Ann. Triangle Land Conservancy has always been a generous sponsor of all of our Keeping the Farm workshops, and always been a huge part of that, making it a success. So thank you, Leigh Ann, and for y'all being here. And she's going to talk about conservation options for your farm. So I'll let you take it away, Leigh Ann.
Okay, great. I'm going to try to share my screen here. And thanks for having me. This is always a great program. I think this was actually the last large public event I went to before COVID all hit. So I'm really thankful to the soil and water staff for pulling this together and not missing a year despite everything that's gone on in the past year. It's a great program with so many great presenters, and I can't emphasize enough what Teresa and Jason just said. You really need to think about what you want the future of your farm or forest land to be and come up with a plan for it, and have those dining room table conversations and really talk through this with your family and other folks that have an ownership stake in the farm. So I'll try to get full screen here. All right, great. So as I said, I'm Leigh Ann Hammerbacher. I'm the Director of Land Protection and Stewardship East for Triangle Land Conservancy. And we're going to talk a little bit about conservation options for your farm for the next generation. In case you're not familiar with TLC, our mission is here. We strive to create a healthier and more vibrant Triangle region by safeguarding clean water, protecting natural habitats, supporting local farms and food, and connecting people with nature. We serve the 6-county Triangle area, including Wake County. You can see green dots, which are indicators of where we have had a conservation project on the ground. These are properties that TLC owns or holds conservation easements on, or has helped another entity such as a government agency acquire and transfer them to. So we work all over the area. You can also see our green blobs, which are areas where we prioritize work, but there's a lot of green dots outside of those green blobs. So if you're interested in these options, feel free to reach out to us. Those green blobs do indicate areas where we have developed conservation plans, and they are a priority for us, and in most cases have some potential funding resources for land protection options. In Wake County, those really are the Upper Neuse area around Falls Lake, Swift Creek, which is also a drinking water resource, and then the Marks Creek region in Eastern Wake. In addition, we have been partnering with the town of Cary and are hopeful that we can get a watershed protection program similar to our Falls Lake program initiated in the Jordan Lake watershed. For those of you not familiar with the Falls Lake program, there is funding allocated through the City of Raleigh Public Utilities that can help support acquisitions of land and also conservation easements. So we protect land for those 4 main key public benefits I just mentioned, including local food and farms. Well, why is this important? Well, we are rapidly losing our farmland. The recent report said 133 acres a day. There's only 46,000 farms that remain in North Carolina. And an interesting stat, 5 times as many farmers are over the age 65 as under 35. So we are going through a real transition in our land ownership in this state. And in fact, we think between 2001 and 2016, more than 731,000 acres of agricultural land were developed. North Carolina happens to be the 2nd most threatened state in the nation for farmland loss. And I think Wake County is right up there with being the highest county for farmland loss in the state. TLC is taking several actions to try to help conserve and support the remaining farms in our area. That includes protecting farms with conservation easements. It also means partnering with other farm organizations like our UCAN partnership and Transplanting Traditions, where TLC is providing farmland to other farmers and groups to farm on site. It also means being involved in farmland protection plans, the food security plans, and other initiatives to support farmland protection throughout our area. In addition, we run 2 farm preserves, one at our Irvin farm outside of Carborough, and our newest farm preserve, which is our Williamson Preserve in Eastern Lake County that I'll talk about in a little bit. Lastly, we help landowners secure working lands and conservation easements on their property. So what are some of the things you can do to protect your land in the short run and long run? Well, really critical, we've already talked about this a lot, but plan for the future of your farm now. Think about conservation plans, work with soil and water, work with your local forester on forest management and conservation plans. Develop forest stewardship plans. Think about that farm transition and what the next step is. All of these plans can help support your farm and help support the resources on your farm. And there's even often cost share opportunities like Larry talked about for these types of programs. In addition, Lake County has a voluntary agricultural district, which is a great voluntary program to show the county and your neighbors that you're committed to supporting production and protecting your farm. In addition, as farmers start to age out and need a transition or are looking for other resources, if you want to keep your farm in production, programs like the Farmland program, which is a website kind of like Match.com for farmers and farm landowners, can be a useful tool, as well as the Next Gen program I'll talk about in a little bit, and other land sharing opportunities. In the longer term, if you really want to permanently protect your land, conservation easements or conservation sale or donation or a transfer could be a potential option. I'll talk a little bit more detail about conservation easements. A conservation easement is a voluntary legal agreement between a landowner and a qualified conservation organization that permanently limits certain uses of the land to protect its conservation values. With a conservation easement, the landowner continues to own and manage the property, and they can even sell it in the long run. But the easement is a legally binding agreement that runs with the deed and can restrict certain things like future subdivision or residential development. In Lake County itself, Triangle Land Conservancy has helped protect about 3,000 acres of land, and about half of this land falls under a conservation easement. All of the pictures in this slideshow presentation are from easements and fee simple properties that TLC has helped protect. So why would anyone do this? Well, I think it really comes down to wanting to conserve your land and protect that legacy. This is a quote from a farmer we worked with this past fall to put a conservation easement on their farm property in Chatham County. And they said, quote, "Being the 6th generation family owner, it was a no-brainer, doing what our ancestors would have done if this program were available at that time. Sometimes being good stewards of the land means going beyond the daily blood, sweat, and tears of working the farm. It means taking a stand for what you believe in." Another actually cattle farmer we worked with, Molly Cohen, said, "After all these years of putting all this work into my farm, I didn't want a development to go up on my land as soon as I was under the ground 6 feet. I wanted to keep this beautiful place like it is." Another dairy farmer we worked with said, quote, Janice Lindley, "We wanted to protect our land so that people sitting here 50 or 100 years from now could see exactly what we're seeing today." And this was actually the window she was looking out of when she made that comment. There's other reasons you might want to consider a conservation option. This is a property, Windsong Farm, which is adjacent to our Williamson Preserve and has a conservation easement on it. The family, the Conyers who owned the property, had cared for this land for over 40 years, but got to a point in life where they needed to move into a facility with more care and support. They wanted to know that if they sold their property, it would remain a farm and help preserve all the work they had invested over the years. So the family actually worked with us on a conservation easement before they put the land on the open market. We recorded the conservation easement, and the property was listed subject to the easement, and they actually had no problems at all selling this property and had the pride of knowing that their land would be as they wanted it to be and help protect all the work and effort they had put into it. Another example of a conservation buyer was a group, the Earthsea Collective, we worked with in Durham. They were actually able to buy a property that was going up for sale adjacent to them, and we were able to bring some funding and resources through that watershed protection program to buy an easement on the property and help enable the purchase of the property as a whole. This is an easement in Wake County that was donated to Triangle Land Conservancy off of Old Mill Burney Road, has 133 acres and about a 15-acre working farm on it. In addition to these open working lands, we also work with forest landowners. This is actually two different easements in Wake County where the landowners have taken on an investment on their own to help reestablish longleaf pine, which is quite rare in our county, but the easement helps protect this critical natural resource and supports the long-term goals of the landowners. In addition to those open agricultural areas and forests, we also support easements on natural areas. Our smallest easement is actually on an 1.5 acre native wildflower garden in downtown Raleigh, known as the Reed Garden. These easements help protect rare and critical species that are rapidly disappearing from our area. And oftentimes our easements use a combination of these. They'll have natural areas, working forest land, and open areas. Typically when we're looking at easements, this native wildflower one is a little bit of an anomaly. We're looking at least 10 or so more acres under easement, but we're always happy to talk to anyone that has questions or conservation interests. So again, how does the easement impact your land? Well, it allows you to continue to own and manage, and often allows for continued farming, forestry, passive recreation, and can allow for a certain number of additional structures, farm improvements, barns, that kind of thing. And the landowner does retain the right to manage, to transfer, or sell the property. All the easements are a little different. They are catered both to the interest of the landowner, or if there is funding involved, there's often template or easement requirements from the funding agency. This is not a quick or limited resource project. Easements can take a lot of time. We have had some landowners who have graciously donated easements to us, and there can be both some estate and income tax advantages associated with those. Those typically take less resources and time than if we're doing a partial purchase or purchase of an easement. When you start to involve local, state, and federal resources, which are often limited, it can be quite time consuming. This is a slide from the North Carolina Agricultural Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund, which does have some limited resources for purchasing conservation easements on working lands. And you can see from their slides from 2015 to 2019, typically about a 4-year process from the time a landowner reaches out to a land trust to the time we actually close on the project. We've worked on projects that have taken 2 months and also ones that have taken 10 years. In addition to conservation easements, Triangle Land Conservancy also owns lands outright. We own a fair amount of farmland. This is a picture from a farm that we own 40 acres on the shores of Lake Benson. This was another example of where watershed protection money was able to help us support the acquisition of this farm. And our latest and greatest preserve is the Bailey and Sarah Williamson Preserve. This 400-acre tract is located in eastern Wake County in the Shotwell area on the Wake-Johnson County line. In September of this year, we actually opened this as our first farm and nature preserve. It's open from dawn to dusk, although check our website if it's been raining, because we do shut down the trails in the rain. But it has about 10 miles of trail and currently has 3 working farmers on it. Our goal is that this will be a farm and nature preserve that provides areas for recreation, but also provides an agricultural demonstration and educational site and a place to help cultivate new and beginning farmers in the region. I'm actually coming live to you from the upstairs. You can see my window there of our new satellite office. This is our farm office. We'll be restored an old pack house and is on the property. Due to COVID, we haven't had many visitors, but we're hoping in the next few months that will be changing. As I mentioned, it is a farm and nature preserve. There are trails on the property which are open to the public. It's free to accessed on the dusk, so come out and visit us. We have started a Next Generation Farmer project in collaboration with Wake County. The goal of this project is really to provide training, access, and resources for new and beginning farmers. This is in partnership as well with the Center for Environmental Farming Systems with North Carolina State University. And we have our first cattle farmer on the site at Williamson, who is working about 20 acres, New Bold Farms. They are practicing regenerative and rotational grazing techniques. And these are pictures from last year, but we just had a few more baby cows born this week. So again, our whole goal is that this can become an educational resource for the entire farming community. I mentioned that that farmer is in partnership with North Carolina Choices and SEVS. I'm sure this slide is a little difficult to read, but we did work for the Center for Environmental Farming System, who secured a grant from the Beginning Farmer and Rancher program through NRCS. And the goal of this program is really to place new and beginning ranchers on specific types of land, including land trust land, woodland plots, and solar areas. If you're interested in this program at all, Leigh Nina's contact information is on the bottom, and they are definitely looking for both farmers and landowners being a part of this partnership. And our goal with the program is that, again, we can provide this educational and training farm, as well as a place for the public to access the nature preserve. This is an excerpt from our agricultural conservation plan for the Williamson Preserve that we're in the midst of working on. In addition, we are seeking additional farmers on the preserve. You can go to our website and there is a request for proposals there if you're interested in seeing how this program works and or submitting an application for farmland use. In addition to conservation easements and buying land or having land donated outright to Triangle Land Conservancy, we also work very closely with partners such as Wake County Open Space, even state parks and other state agencies to help them acquire land or conservation easements. So if you're interested in one of those programs, feel free to reach out to us and we are happy to help you navigate that process as well. So that was a brief summary of our work. Like Jason, could probably do an hour plus on each one of those topics, but I think I'll stop at this point and see if there's any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Leigh Ann. Great presentation and beautiful pictures of Wake County there too. So it's always great to see those pictures. I'll let Michaela, it may take a second to get any questions in, but if she sees anything initially.
I don't see any questions at this time. We did have a comment by Maria. She said that Williams Preserve is incredibly beautiful. I have to agree with her.
Thank you.
anybody that's been out there for sure. So
I'll give
this,
people.
this is one of the topics, that has definitely been coming up a lot lately with a lot of the farmers and landowners that we work with, as far as, they're thinking about the future. I've had some conversations with some from just in the past week. And our next presenters, we talk about Plan Wake, and like Leigh Ann said, Wake is under a considerable amount of pressure for development. And we're kind of having that rural ag, interface, I call it, where it's colliding, and so with a lot of subdivisions popping up in farming communities in those areas. And so I think it's critical to keep the communication open between the different land uses, and show that agriculture and farming and conservation and all those are still very important to the county, and keeping some of those lands in that. So that's one good thing that Leigh Ann and Triangle Land Conservancy has been working hard to do over the years, is trying their best to preserve and help as many as they can, working with, like you said, with Wake County Open Space, working with ADFP, the Farmland Preservation Program that we have with the state, and the federal one as well. So all of these federal, state, local, nonprofit, all these agencies are continuing working together and doing the best we can to try to preserve as much as we can in Wake County of what's left of our open and forest land and ag land as well. So you see anything, Michaela?
We do have one more comment from Joni. She said she enjoyed the polled Hertford cattle preserve.
Yes. Yeah.
She herself has black baldy beef cattle.
Yes, and we value the relationship, with looking at those pictures. The Wake Soil and Water District has actually been involved with the Next Gen program as well, and working with those farmers like New Bowl Farms and stuff with, rotational grazing system and planning for livestock watering and things like that as well. So we love that partnership, Leigh Ann, and love working with those innovative farmers and helping them achieve their conservation objectives, what they want to do on those farms. So we really enjoy that. So, and he does a great job. So,
and we really are hoping to open this up for more educational programs and tours of the farm areas this coming year. So if there's any farmers out there interested in some of the practices we have in place and want to see them in person, definitely reach out to Teresa or I. Yes. Or any of the other conservation staff. And I'll also mention, especially with some of the purchased easement programs like the state's ADFP program and the federal agricultural lands easement program, the applications and process take a lot of time. So typically those are due in December and February, but it is best to reach out to us at least 6 months plus in advance if you're interested in them, so we can start to think if they would be applicable to your site or not.
Great advice. Absolutely. It's true. As you know, it takes time to get all this together and to work through those channels and the application processes and all the things they need to support that application. So it's very important to get those conversations started very early. So to do that.